All right, no microphone, but this will be my full in-depth analysis of who will win the AFL Grand Final. Now, why don't I have a mic? And why do I keep staring here and not here? Well, I'm recording on my phone. I'm currently in Bolivia. Yes. I'm next to the salt flats, and I haven't had Wi-Fi for 5 days. But the grand final, as recording, is in 2 days, I believe, 2 a.m. in South American time. But I wanted to talk about it a bit more. I've seen a lot of people back in Brisbane, which concerns me because I genuinely think it's Collingwood's grand final to lose for many reasons. They've been the best team all year. Look, as of recent, you would say the form is better. Probably for Brisbane. I mean, they haven't had many close games in the last 5, 6, 7 weeks. Collingwood have lost some games and had some really close wins. So obviously Brisbane are in better form, but home ground advantage for Collingwood is obviously one of the biggest factors. Okay, the MCG. Why? Look, obviously it has to be at the G because 100,000. But it's just it would be so frustrating for an interstate club and as an interstate fan knowing that your team in the biggest game of the year has an automatic disadvantage if the other team's from Victoria. Ignore the noise. It's just some trucks going past. But look, I think Collingwood win. Let's keep it at that. Let's keep it plain and simple. I think Collingwood win. I think, despite Brisbane being in better form, I think Collingwood come into this as favourites, and I think Collingwood win. Everything this year has said Collingwood win. Now, usually if a team finishes first, it's no guarantee. In fact, for some reason, the last 10 years, the team that finishes first and after the home and away season winning the minor premiership tends to not win the actual major premiership. So, maybe it's not so certain. Brisbane haven't been the second best team all year. Only till the last 4 rounds they solidified themselves as the second best team in my opinion. For a while, Port Adelaide were there, Melbourne were there. You could even say on form, Carlton were there. But we're down. Fuck, it's cold. We're down 2-2. And I'm going Collingwood. And I'm going Collingwood by 29 points. And I've made a couple other videos about this. I think, let's talk through the game. First quarter, I think Collingwood starts strong. Second quarter, third quarter, Brisbane come back. Now, both finals games, Brisbane have struggled more or less. There's just a car coming. Brisbane in both final games started really slow. So I think the first quarter is Collingwood's to win. And I think they will. They'll dominate, maybe get up by 20. I think second quarter, Brisbane will fight back. Third quarter is the premiership quarter, which I think Brisbane win, but I just think Collingwood will have too much at the end. And that's how I think the game goes. Now, in terms of player for player, not player for player, line for line, defensive line, attacking line. The defensive line, I think, I've never rated Brisbane's defence. Yes, they have Harris Andrews, but I think their defence, there's fragility there. They're not as astute as Collingwood's defence. I think they're, defender for defender, they're not as better. And as a team system, they're not as good as Collingwood. I think Collingwood, the fact that they're leaving out Johnny Noble says everything about Collingwood's defence. That's how good their defence is. The fact they're leaving out Johnny Noble, who starts for any other team in the competition, regardless, okay? So, there's obviously some more sounds. Just a little shotgun player. There's obviously fragility in Brisbane's defence, I believe. I think Jack Ginny can get a hold of them. I think I'll take Collingwood's defence. And what's the saying? Defence wins premierships. Not the forward players, not the midfields. Defence wins premierships. Now, as for the midfield, I think it's pretty much even. Yes, the big boys, Nick Dacos, and Lachie Neale, obviously 1 and 3 in the Brownlow, which has just happened. So they're the big guns. But Josh Dacos, Hugh McCluggage on the wings, Sidebottom and Pendlebury. That's where I think there's a little bit of a difference here. Is obviously Sidebottom, Pendlebury, and a lot of the other Collingwood players had that grand final experience. Pendles and Sidebottom in 2010, 11 and 18. And a lot of the other Collingwood boys in 2018. Now, Brisbane don't have that grand final experience. Is a grand final experience as important as people say it is? I think it is. I think it is in terms of the build-up, how you approach it, how you approach the media, or the hype, how you sort of, control your emotions. And I think in that respect, that's another advantage to Collingwood. All these little things, the backline's a little advantage to Collingwood. The experience in grand finals is a little advantage to Collingwood. The experience in finals as a whole, Pendlebury, Sidebottom, that's a little advantage to Collingwood. The fact that the game is at the MCG is another little advantage to Collingwood. Little advantages to Collingwood. Now, form is a little advantage to Brisbane. Maybe a major advantage to Brisbane, but is form a thing when the grand final comes around? I don't know. I don't fucking know. Okay, we keep going through. Rucks aren't that important. Neither team has a great ruck. But I would say Big O is probably better than Darcy Cameron, Mason Cox, whoever starts for Collingwood, whoever the ruck is. Now, forward line, this is where I think Brisbane now have a slight edge, given the departure or the injury to Dan McStay, who of course played for Brisbane all throughout his time, but now plays for Collingwood. Now, no Dan McStay. They replaced him with mental blank, the guy who played for both Adelaide clubs. So obviously they're less strong, but they do have X factor. They have Ginnivan, they have Hill. That's X factor. But Brisbane have Charlie Cameron. They have an informed Joe Danaher, who I think is a big chance to capitulate in the finals. I'll get onto that a bit later. They have an informed Joe Danaher. They have an informed forward line. So I think the forward line of Brisbane pipped Collingwood, despite the scoring power of Collingwood all throughout the year. Now, coaches, there's not much between them. Neither have coached a grand final. Look, maybe you could say Fagan's more experienced, so does he have the edge? But you could say he hasn't been as good of a coach this year as Fly. So coaches doesn't really matter. But I think all in all, those little things, and I think for Collingwood to win this grand final, I feel like this is based off absolutely nothing, but I feel like they would want it more because of what happened in 2018. And I know a lot of players have left that 2018 squad, and it's a very much revitalised new squad, but there's still quite a few hanging around, and they would want redemption, okay? And I think having lost one grand final doesn't necessarily mean you win the next, but I think it does help, okay? Now, onto little like awards. I think the Norm Smith, if Collingwood wins, who I think they will, I think it goes to DeGoey. Massive noisy chart going. I think DeGoey is the X Factor player. Let me stop this. And we're back. I think DeGoey is the X Factor player. He's that forward mid player who's obviously going to attract eyes from the Brownlow deciders. Because wow, that truck's fucking loud as shit. I think DeGoey wins it, and then I think if Collingwood win, so DeGoey, I'll go Josh Dacos 2, and then I'll go with Hugh McCluggage at 3. I think if Brisbane win it, I think the obvious choice is Lachie Neale, which is frustrating because Dustin Martin to this day is the only player to win a Brownlow and a Norm Smith in the same year, alongside a bunch of other awards, okay? I don't think Lachie Neale's going to win the Brownlow if Brisbane win it. I think Hugh McCluggage is my number 1 pick. I think Charlie Cameron is the number 2 pick. And I think Jack Gunston's a bit of an out there shout. Oleg Markov, if Collingwood wins an outside shout, I'll go with Jack Gunston as 3. There's always a random player like Shane Edwards, Bachahuli for Richmond, up there all throughout those 3 premierships for Richmond. So a defender should get in there, and an unrecognised defender at that. Oleg Markov could be that. We don't know. Now, big flop. I'm going the forwards. It's a big flop. I think Danaher's going to flop. I think fucking Myercheck's going to flop. Cox is going to, all the big forwards I think are going to flop. I just had that vibe about it. I think it's going to be a ground ball game. It's going to be a scrap, a big old scrap. Yeah, so I feel like Danaher has that sort of risk of just not performing in a big game, but he has been performing in finals, so maybe I look like an absolute dumb fuck right now. Apart from that, that's pretty much it. I can give you the fucking Sprint award or whatever. But I hope Brisbane win. The whole of Australia hopes Brisbane wins this grand final. No one wants to see Collingwood win, apart from Collingwood fans. Every Victorian club, even Gold Coast, who are the rivals of Brisbane, want Brisbane to win. Okay, Brisbane are a more likeable club, in my opinion, with more likeable players, and I don't want to see Collingwood win, because the Collingwood fans, their lids will just be so off and they'll be so jarring. Nonetheless, that is a very... Look, there's no lighting, no microphone, no nothing. It's a double negative. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you like, subscribe. I will be watching the grand final with a VPN, KO, and a bit of a magic sauce. Not sure what that means, but hey, come on the fucking Lions.